The Memoirs of Victor Hugo by Victor Hugo. Theater. Joanne. March 7, 1830 midnight. They have been playing Hernani at the Théâtre Français since February 25. The receipts for each performance have been 5,000 francs. The public every night hisses all the verses. It is a rare uproar. The parterre hoots, the boxes burst with laughter. The actors are abashed and hostile. Most of them ridicule what they have to say. The press has been practically unanimous every morning in making fun of the piece and the author. If I enter a reading room, I cannot pick up a paper without seeing absurd as Hernani, silly, false, bombastic, pretentious, extravagant and nonsensical as Hernani. If I venture into the corridors of the theater while the performance is in progress, I see spectators issue from their boxes and slam the doors indignantly. Mars plays her part honestly and faithfully but laughs at it even in my presence. Michelot plays his resignedly and laughs at it behind my back. There is not a scene shifter, not a super, not a lamplighter but points his finger at me. Today I dined with Joanne, who had invited me. Joanne plays Rui Gomez. He lives at number 1 Rue du Jardinet with a young seminarist, his nephew. The dinner party was sober and cordial. There were some journalists there, among others M. Merle, the husband of Madame d'Orval. After dinner, Joanne, who has the most beautiful white hair in the world, rose, filled his glass, turned towards me. I was on his right hand. Here literally is what he said to me. I have just returned home and I write his words. Monsieur Victor Hugo, the old man now unknown, who 200 years ago filled the role of Don Digue in Le Cid, was not more penetrated with respect and admiration in presence of the great Corneille than the old man who plays Don by Gomez is today in your presence. Mademoiselle Mars. In her last illness, Emily Mars was often delirious. One evening the doctor arrived. She was in the throes of a high fever and her mind was wandering. She prattled about the theater, her mother, her daughter, her niece Georgina, about all that she held dear. She laughed, wept, screamed, sighed deeply. The doctor approached her bed and said to her, "Dear lady, calm yourself, it is I." She did not recognize him and her mind continued to wander. He went on, "Come, show me your tongue, open your mouth." Mars gazed at him, opened her mouth and said, "Here, look. Oh, my teeth are my very own." Célimène still lived. Frédéric Lemaitre. Frédéric Lemaitre is cross, morose and kind. He lives in retirement with his children and his mistress, who at present is Émilie Clarice Morroy. Frédéric likes the table. He never invites anybody to dinner except Porcher, the chief of the claque, Frédéric and Porcher each other. Porcher has common sense, good manners and plenty of money, which he lends gallantly to authors whose rent is due. Porcher is the man of whom Harel said, he likes, protects and disdains literary men. A band of men and boys who are paid to applaud a piece or a certain actor or actress at a given signal. The applause contractor or chef de claque is an important factor in French theatrical affairs. Frédéric has never less than 15 dishes at his table. When the servant brings them in, he looks at them and judges them without tasting them. Often he says, "That is bad. Have you eaten of it?" "No, God forbid." "But taste it. It is detestable." "I will taste it," says Clarice. "It is execrable. I forbid you to do so. But let me try it. Take that dish away. It is filthy." And he sends for his cook and rates her soundly. He is greatly feared by all his household. His domestics live in a state of terror. At table, if he does not speak, no one utters a word. Oh, would dare to break the silence when he is mute? One would think it was a dinner of dumb people or a supper of Trappists, except for the good cheer. He likes to wind up the repast with fish. If there is turbot, he has it served after the creams. He drinks, when dining, a bottle and a half of Bordeaux wine. Then after dinner he lights his cigar and, while smoking, drinks 2 other bottles of wine. For all that he is a comedian of genius and a very good fellow, is easily moved to tears, which start to his eyes at a word said to him, angrily or reproachfully. This dates back to 1840. Émilie Atala Baudouin, the actress who under the name of Louise Baudouin created the role of the Queen in Rui Bias, had left Frédéric Lemaitre, the great and marvelous comedian. Frédéric adored her and was inconsolable. Emily Atala's mother had strongly advised her daughter on this occasion. Frederick was occasionally violent, notwithstanding that he was very amorous, and besides, a Russian prince had presented himself. In short, Emily Atala persisted in her determination and positively refused to see Frederick. Frederick made frightful threats, especially against the mother. One morning there was a violent ringing at Emily Atala's bell. Her mother opened the door and recoiled in terror. It was Frederick. He entered, dropped into the chair that was handiest to him, and said to the old woman, "Don't be afraid, I haven't come to kick I have come to weep." The comique, September 1846. Potier, having grown old, played at the Porte Saint-Martin towards the close of his life. He was the same in the street as he was on the stage. Little boys would follow him saying, "There is Potier." He had a small cottage near Paris and used to come to rehearsals mounted on a small horse, his long thin legs dangling nearly to the ground. Tirslin was a Hellenist. Audrey is a connoisseur of chinaware. Elephantine Le Painter Jr. runs into debt and lives the life of a cooking de Neuveu. Alcide Tauses, Sainville and Ravel carry on in the green room just as they do on the stage, inventing cock-and-bull yarns and cracking jokes. Arnold composes classic verse, admires Samson, waxes wrath because the cross has not been conferred upon him, and, in the green room with rouge on his nose and cheeks and a wig on his head, talks between two slaps in the face given or received, about Guizot's last speech, free trade, and Sir Robert Peel. He interrupts himself, makes his entry upon the stage, plays his part, returns and gravely resumes, "I was saying that Robert Peel." Poor Arnold recently was driven almost insane. He had a mistress whom he adored. This woman fleeced him. Having become rich enough, she said to him, "Our position is an immoral one and an end must be put to it. Honest man has offered me his name and I am going to get married." Arnold was disconsolate. "I give you the preference," said the belle. "Marry me." Arnold is married. The woman left him and has become a bourgeoise. Arnold nearly lost his reason through grief. This does not prevent him from playing his pasquinades every night at the vaudeville. He makes fun of his ugliness, of his age, of the fact that he is pitted with smallpox, laughs at all those things that prevented him from pleasing the woman he loved, and makes the public laugh, and his heart is broken. Poor Red Q. What eternal and incurable sorrows there be in the gaiety of a buffoon. What a lugubrious business is that of laughter. Mademoiselle Georges. October 23, 1867. Emily George came to see me today. She was sad and elegantly dressed, in a blue dress with white stripes. She said, "I am weary and disgusted." I asked for Mars reversion. They granted me a pension of 2,000 francs, which they do not pay. Just a mouthful of bread, and even that I do not get a chance to eat. They wanted to engage me at the Historique. At the Theatre Historique. I refused. What could I do there among those transparencies? A stout woman like me. Besides, where are the authors? Where are the pieces? Where are the roles? As to the provinces, I tried touring last year, but it is impossible without Harel. I don't know how to manage actors. How do you think I can get on with these evil doers? I was to have finished the 24th. I paid them on the 20th and fled. I returned to Paris to visit poor Harel's tomb. It is frightful. It is horrible to see his name there on the stone. Yet I did not weep. I was dry-eyed and cold. What a strange thing is life. To think that this man who was so clever, so witty, should die an idiot. He passed his days doing like this with his fingers. Not a spark of reason remained. It is all over. I shall have Rachel at my benefit. I shall play with her that chestnut, Iphigenie. We shall make money, but I don't care. Besides, I'm sure she wouldn't play Rodogun. I will also play, if you will permit me, an act of Lucrece Borgia. You see, I am for Rachel. She is an artful one, if you like. See how she checkmates those rascally French actors. She renews her engagements, assures for herself pyrotechnics, vacations, heaps of gold. When the contract is signed, she says, "By the by, I forgot to tell you that I have been enceinte for 4 months. It will be 5 months before I am able to play." She does well. If I had done the same thing, I shouldn't have to die like a dog on a litter of straw. Tragedians, you see, are comedians. After all, that poor Dorval, what has become of her, do you know? There is one to be pitied if you like. She is playing I know not where, at Toulouse, at Carpenter's, in barns to earn her living. She is reduced, like me, to showing her bald head and dragging her poor old carcass on badly planed boards behind footlights of 4 tallow candles, among strolling actors who have been to the galleys, or who ought to be there. Ah, Monsieur Hugo, all this is nothing to you who are in good health and well off, but we are poor miserable creatures. *M. Harel was manager of the Porte Saint Martin Theatre. Henri Georges lived with him. Tableaux vivants. In the year 1846 there was a spectacle that caused a furor in Paris. Was that afforded by women attired only in pink tights and a gauze skirt, executing poses that were called tableaux vivants with a few men to complete the groups. This show was given at the Porte Saint Martin and at the Cirque. I had the curiosity one night to go and see the women behind the scenes. I went to the Porte Saint Martin, where, I may add in parentheses, they were going to revive Lucrece Borgia. Villemot, the stage manager, who was of poor appearance but intelligent, said, I will take you into the gymnasium. A score of men were there, authors, actors, firemen, lamplighters, scene shifters who came, went, worked or looked on, and in the midst of them 7 or 8 women, practically nude, walked about with an air of the most naive tranquility. The pink tights that covered them from the feet to the neck were so thin and transparent that one could see not only the toes, the navel and the breasts, but also the veins and the color of the least mark on the skin on all parts of their bodies. Towards the abdomen, however, the tights became thicker and only the form was distinguishable. The men who assisted them were similarly arranged. All these people were English. At intervals of 5 minutes the curtain parted and they executed a tableau. For this they were posed in immobile attitudes upon a large wooden disc which revolved upon a pivot. It was worked by a child of 14 who reclined on a mattress beneath it. Men and women were dressed up in chiffons of gauze or merino that were very ugly at a distance and very ignoble under. They were pink statues. When the disc had revolved once and shown the statues on every side to the public, crowded in the darkened theater, the curtain closed again, another tableau was arranged and the performance recommenced a moment later. 2 of these women were very pretty. One resembled Madame Ray, who played the Queen in Ruy Blas in 1840. It was this one who represented Venus. She was admirably shaped. Another was more than pretty, she was handsome and superb. Nothing more magnificent could be seen than her black, sad eyes, her disdainful mouth, her smile at once bewitching and haughty. She was called Maria, I believe. In a tableau which represented a slave market, she displayed the imperial despair and the stoical dejection of a nude queen offered for sale to the first bidder. Her tights, which were torn at the hip, disclosed her firm white flesh. They were, however, only poor girls of London. All had dirty fingernails. When they returned to the green room they laughed as freely with the scene shifters as with the authors and talked broken French while they adjusted all kinds of frightful rags upon their charming visages. Their smile was the calm smile of perfect innocence or of complete corruption. At the Academy. Session of November 23, 1843. Charles Nodier. The Academy, yielding to custom, has suppressed universally the double consonant in verbs where this consonant supplanted euphoniously the undershirt of the radical under. Myself. I avow my profound ignorance. I had no idea that custom had effected this suppression and that the Academy had sanctioned it. Thus, one should no longer write _attendre, approver, appeller, apprehender etc., but _attendre, approver, appeller, apprehender a Victor Cousin. I desire to point out to M. Hugo that the alterations of which he complains come from the movement of the language, which is nothing else than decadence. Myself, M. Cousin, having addressed a personal observation to me, I beg to point out to him in turn that his opinion is, in my estimation, merely an opinion and nothing more. I may add that, as I view it, movement of the language and decadence have nothing in common. Nothing could be more distinct than these 2 things. Movement in no way proves decadence. The language has been moving since the first day of its formation. Can it be said to be deteriorating? Movement is life. Decadence is death. Cousin. The decadence of the French language began in 1789. Myself. At what hour, if you please? October 8, 1844. This is what was told to me at today's session. Salvandi recently dined with Vilmain. The repast over, they adjourned to the drawing room and conversed. As the clock struck 8, Villemain's 3 little daughters entered to kiss their father good night. The youngest is named Lucette. Her birth cost her mother her reason. She is a sweet and charming child of 5 years. Well, Lucette, dear child, said her father, won't you recite one of La Fontaine's fables before you go to bed? Here, observed M. de Salvandi, is a little person who today recites fables and who one of these days will inspire romances. Lucette did not understand. She merely gazed with her big wondering eyes at Salvandi, who was lolling in his chair with an air of benevolent condescension. Well, Lucette, he went on, will you not recite a fable for us? The child required no urging and began in her naive little voice, her fine, frank, sweet eyes still fixed upon Salvandi. One easily believes oneself to be somebody in France. 1845. During the run of M. Ponce's Lucrece, I had the following dialogue with M. Viennet at a meeting of the Academy. Viennet, have you seen the Lucrece that is being played at the Odeon? Myself, no. Viennet, it is very good. Myself, really, is it good? Viennet, it is more than good, it is fine. Myself, really, is it fine? Viennet, it is more than fine, it is magnificent. Myself, really, now magnificent? Viennet, oh, magnificent. Myself, come now, is it as good as Zaire? Viennet, oh, no. You are going too far, you know. Gracious. Zaire. No, it is not as good as Zaire. Myself, well, you see, Zaire is a very poor piece indeed. An election session. February 11, 1847. 31 academicians present. 16 votes are necessary. First ballot. Émile Deschamps 2 votes. Victor Leclerc 14. MPs 15. Lamartine and M. Ballanche arrive at the end of the first ballot. Thiers arrives at the commencement of the second, which makes 34. The director asks M. Thiers whether he has promised his vote. Laughingly replies, no, and adds, I have offered it. Laughter. Cousin to M. Lebrun, director, you did not employ the sacramental expression. One does not ask an academician whether he has promised his vote, but whether he has pledged it. Second ballot. Émile Deschamps 2 votes. MPs 18. Victor Leclerc 14. MPs is elected. The election was decided by Lamartine and M. Ballanche. On my way out I meet Leon Gosselin, who says to me, well? I reply, there has been an election. It is MPs. How do you look at it? He asks. In both ways. MPs? And understampis under. March 16, 1847. At the Academy today, while listening to the poems, bad to the point of grotesqueness, that have been sent for the competition of 1847, M. de Baranti remarked, really in these times we no longer know how to make mediocre verses. Great praise of the poetical and literary excellence of these times, although M. de Baranti was not conscious of it. April 22, 1847. Election of M. Ampere. This is an improvement upon the last. Slow improvement. But academies, like old people, go slowly. During the session and after the election, Lamartine sent to me by an usher the following lines. C'est un état peu prospère. D'aller d'empire en empire. I replied to him by the same usher. Toutefois ce serait pis. D'aller d'empire en empire. October 4, 1847. I have just heard M. Viennet say, I think in bronze. December 29, 1848. Friday. Yesterday, Thursday, I had 2 duties to attend to at one and the same time, the Assembly and the Academy, the salt question on the one hand, on the other the much smaller question of 2 vacant seats. Yet I gave the preference to the latter. This is why, at the Palais Bourbon, the Cavaignac party had to be prevented from killing the new cabinet. At the Palais Mazarin, the Academy had to be prevented from offending the memory of Chateaubriand. There are cases in which the dead count for more than the living. I went to the Academy. The Academy last Thursday had suddenly decided at the opening of the session, at a time when nobody had yet put in an appearance, when there were only 4 or 5 round the green table, that on January 11th, that is to say in 3 weeks, it would fill the 2 seats left vacant by MM. De Chateaubriand and Vadout. This strange alliance I do not say of names but of words, replace M. de Chateaubriand and Vadout. Did not stop it for 1 minute. The Academy is thus made, its wit and that wisdom which produces so many follies, are composed of extreme lightness, combined with extreme heaviness. Hence a good deal of foolishness and a good many foolish acts. Beneath this lightness, however, there was an intention. This giddiness was fraught with deep meaning. The brave party that leads the Academy, for there are parties everywhere, even at the Academy, hoped public attention being directed elsewhere, politics absorbing everything, to juggle the seat of Chateaubriand pell-mell with the seat of M. Vadout. 2 peas in the same goblet. In this way the astonished public would turn round one fine morning and simply see M. de Noailles in Chateaubriand's seat, a small matter, a great lord in the place of a great writer. Then, after a roar of laughter, everybody would go about his business. Again distractions would speedily come, thanks to the veering of politics, and as to the Academy, oh, a duke and peer the more in it, a little more ridicule upon it, what would that matter? It would go on just the same. Besides, M. de Noailles is a considerable personage, bearing a great name, being lofty of manner, enjoying an immense fortune, of certain political weight under Louis Philippe, accepted by the conservatives, although, or because, a legitimist, reading speeches that were listened to, he occupied an important place in the Chamber of Peers, which proves that the Chamber of Peers occupied an unimportant place in the country. Chateaubriand, who hated all that could replace him and smiled at all that could make him regretted, had had the kindness to tell him, sometimes by Madame Récamier's fireside, that he hoped he would be his successor, which prompted M. de Noailles to dash off a big book in 2 volumes about Madame de Maintenon, at the commencement of which, on the first page of the preface, I was stopped by a lordly breach of grammar. This was the state of things when I concluded to go to the Academy. The session, which was announced to begin at 2 o'clock as usual, opened as usual at 3:15, and at 3:30. At 3:30 the candidacy of Monsieur the Duc de Noailles, replacing Chateaubriand, was irresistibly acclaimed. Decidedly, I ought to have gone to the Assembly. March 26, 1850. Tuesday. I had arrived early at noon. I was warming myself, for it is very cold and the ground is covered with snow, which is not good for the apricot trees. Guizot, leaning against the mantelpiece, was saying to me, "As a member of the Dramatic Prize Committee, I read yesterday in a single day, mind you, no fewer than 6 plays. That," I responded, "was to punish you for not having seen one acted in 18 years. At this moment M. Thiers came up and the 2 men exchanged greetings. This is how they did it. Thiers, good afternoon, Guizot. Guizot, good afternoon, monsieur. An election session. March 28, 1850. M. Guizot presided. At the roll call, when M. Pusquier's name was reached, he said, "Monsieur the Chancellor." When he got to that of M. Dupin, President of the National Assembly, he called, "Monsieur Dupin." First ballot. Alfred de Musset 5 votes. Nissard 23. Nissard is elected. Today, September 12, the Academy worked at the dictionary. A propos of the word increase, this example, taken from the works of Madame de Staël, was proposed. Poverty increases ignorance, and ignorance poverty. 3 objections were immediately raised. 1. Antithesis. 2. Contemporary writer. 3. Dangerous thing to say. The Academy rejected the example.